Before we get to the episode, exciting news. I have a new podcast, a second podcast. I am the host and producer of the Strandcast, the official podcast for Strand Bookstore in New York City at 12th and Broadway, the coolest independent bookstore. And now there's a podcast every other week featuring long-form conversations with authors from different genres. The Strandcast is available on iTunes and Stitcher. Just search for the Strandcast. Links will be in the show notes, of course, and make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And now for the show. Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Talk Music Talk with Boyce. I am Boyce, and this is my podcast you are listening to. If you are a first-time listener, Talk Music Talk is a weekly music interview podcast where I have long-form conversations with people connected to music from different genres and different backgrounds, both established and emerging. And on this episode, it is a beautiful episode. There's so much I want to say about this guest, and yet I want the interview to speak for itself. Sir Ari Gold. I think I can have it both ways because, I feel like there should be some context to talk about him in the interview. He is a singer-songwriter based in the East Village on the Lower East Side. He was raised in an Orthodox Jewish community in the Bronx. I have been a fan of his since his Wave of You music video back in 2001. Ari was DIY before it was cool. He was openly gay before it was cool. And along the way, he has been releasing exciting R&B and song-based dance music. He is a great songwriter and singer. He has amazing hooks in his music. He has had a career of ups, lots of number one videos, and touring all over the world. An incredible performer, makes great videos. But amid the ups, Ari has been dealing with fighting cancer over the past 6-7 years. Last year, he wrote an essay about his struggle, and we talk about that in the conversation. And somehow he has not stopped working, several albums and videos and touring. I have admired him for a long time, and even meeting him just increased that admiration. He is someone who has always been true to himself and his art, and after meeting him, I admire him even more for his bravery and strength and passion. In this conversation, he speaks very candidly about his childhood, the music business, dealing with depression, coming out, gay shame, fighting cancer. It's all in there. Over an hour, beautiful conversation. And after it, you will hear 2 songs from his latest project, which is called Remix to Freedom by Gold Nation. Gold Nation, and I hope I'm going to get it right, Ari told me, is a collective, everyone he works with. We are Gold Nation for listening. Something along those lines. I think I got it right. But Remix to Freedom is all the remixes for the studio album of his album, Soundtrack to Freedom, which is incredible. You're going to hear 2 songs from it. Like I said, Soundtrack to Freedom, the Jared Jones Deep Throat, the Rhythm Mix, and Back in High School, the Dr. Brooks House Party Mix, 2 of my favorite songs from the album. His name is Sir Ari Gold because he was knighted by a drag queen. So here it is, without further ado, my conversation with Sir Ari Gold. Enjoy.
You gave me no indication of what we're going to be talking about. I mean, I told you I wanted to talk about my album, so but
we'll try to listen to it.
I'm open to talk about anything, and I'm just going to go with the flow.
It's a life career,
I'm going to trust you.
Yes, you're in good hands.
Okay,
right. I'll take care of you.
Okay, good.
I don't know what you're going to do when the interview's over, but
I've already invited you into my home.
So. You're fine, dude. Let's see. You actually on the remix album, which is Remix to Freedom?
Correct
title. I know one of the remixers, Matthew Paiso. We went to college together.
Oh, that's really funny.
So that was cool to see.
That's really funny. I actually worked with Matt years and years ago because he remixed Love Will Take Over.
Yeah.
Which was basically my second quote-unquote single. Mm-hmm. I say quote-unquote because back then I was doing things so DIY and just the music industry was changing by the minute, as it sort of still is, although it may have settled into this new streaming era that we're in. But But he did a remix of Level Takeover that I used to perform at like every Pride festival across the country, and it was my favorite remix. And then that video for Level Takeover infamously bumped Madonna out of the top spot on Logo.
Okay.
And that was a very proud accomplishment for me.
Did you hear from her for that injustice?
I wish. I mean, I say it proudly, being the huge Madonna fan that I am, and I don't even like to talk about it because she's a divisive figure, and then some people immediately turn off if they think you're a Madonna fan. They don't want to listen to what you have to say anymore if they're not a Madonna fan.
I'm a Madonna fan, and I feel like I sometimes have to explain.
Oh, good.
Why.
So at least me and you were on the same page. So that's good. But not only was it an accomplishment as a fan, but it was an accomplishment because it was the gay network, and one of my missions was about representation, and so this is the gay network. So this is where a openly gay artist should bump a gay icon out of the top spot, because as much as we love our gay icons, we need to see ourselves truly reflected. That was one of my main points and main passions, that we needed to actually see ourselves, because there really was no one. There was no openly gay artist at that time really making videos. I mean, actually, George Michael, who was outed and then became such an incredible advocate, and I mean, he's an incredible artist, and was outed in such a cruel and unjust way. But he stepped up to the plate, like, once that happened to him, and then, he did create music videos and stuff that had some gay content in it. But certainly, as far as openly gay artists, like from the beginning of their careers, and even he had a hard time getting played in the States. Yeah. So in this country, there was virtually nobody. So yes, proud accomplishment.
Yes. When did you decide in your career that, okay, I'm going to be an openly gay artist from the get-go? Or was it from the get-go?
It was from the get-go. As soon as I came out, which was, I was about 18 years old, basically my first year of college, basically my first year out of the very bubble-like environment of Orthodox Judaism. So as soon as I was out in the real world, although I was in show business my whole life, so I did venture out into the real world, unlike most of my Orthodox Jewish friends, but once I was on my own and not under my parents' supervision, and once I came out to them, which I've told this story many times, but was in an 18-page college-ruled letter, sat them all down, read them the letter, handed them each a copy, including my brothers, with additional reading materials stapled to the back. So once I was out to them, and that was such a long process of making sure it was done in the right way, because I had a lot of anger, towards my family for their homophobia. And so my first draft of the letter was actually an angry draft. And so once I came out in the right way, and once I, went to college and started meeting other gay people and becoming, I guess, politicized, that's when I knew, oh, well, I've always written about what was going on in my life, even if I was lying to myself in some ways with some of my first songs, because they were maybe about my girlfriend who was my high school beard. Then it was oh, well, I need to continue to really write about my life, and I think this is something that's necessary, because I wanted to be the kind of artist that I didn't have growing up. I had Madonna, and she was very influential, because that was one of the major lessons she taught me, was that it was okay to be gay, and no one else I had access to at the time was telling me that. Basically that's when I started to write from that place, and use male pronouns, and apparently that was a big deal at the time.
Did you see that? Okay, were you actually saying I'm going to be political by doing this?
Yes, because I mean, once I left yeshiva, Jewish parochial school, and once I went to college, and once I came out and started to accept myself, I became a politicized person. I became woke.
Okay.
But there was no woke back then. It was just political.
Yeah.
And I took the very first ever given intro to lesbian and gay studies course that was given at NYU, and that changed my life.
Yeah.
That just my brain just went crazy, like wide open. Just certain essays that I was reading, queer theory. This one essay, her name is Gail, and I can't remember the last name, but it was like in this huge book, the intro to lesbian and gay studies reader. I still have that book. I don't even know, and that's they called it lesbian and gay studies then. It would now be called LGBT studies or queer studies, or and she just talked about the hierarchization of sex. And it just blew my mind, like the way in which our culture deems certain sex okay, certain sex not okay, and how much of that has influenced the way we organize our world. And of course, it's all connected to, patriarchy and heteropatriarchy and white supremacy. So all of that, I think I had the sensitivity in high school and stuff, and I had older friends I had one older friend, Victoria, who was a feminist, and she helped, she woken me to feminism and inequality. And so there were certain things. I was outspoken in high school. I even remember raising my hand once, against something the rabbis were saying about homosexuals. But I had my girlfriend, so I was like covered.
Okay.
But once I really allowed myself to be, and I hung out with like the more artsy fartsy kids. So yeah, it was all very conscious choice to do that. And it was a very different time because just the idea of being political then was not something that people thought would work in the realm of pop music. But now we're in a very different time with where people are aware of these things, and it's better to be woke about these things.
Was there any hesitation in making that choice that, okay, I have these goals for my career, is this going to be an impediment, since you didn't have someone to look at and like, oh, well, there's all these other people before me who've done it?
Right. I definitely underestimated the homophobia that I was going to come up against because I thought the world was ready. I really underestimated the homophobia from within the community. In people, gay people in the music industry were some of the most homophobic people that I encountered.
Okay.
And I think now looking back, I understand that what I really underestimated was the trauma of AIDS. And the devastation of that, and how people were just so scared and not ready for something like what I was trying to portray, which was not just gay, but unabashedly sexual and multifaceted, and there were other times when. So I never doubted my decision. I had the arrogance of youth on my side. I was very sure of myself. In fact, too sure of myself, really.
To not know better. Right?
To not know better. Exactly. And, but there were other times, where I did compromise. People think that it wasn't like I was just completely, stubborn and like I compromised. I remember Desmond Child, who I worked with, and he heard my demo and he wanted me to re-record one of my songs that had the male pronouns with female pronouns, and I refused, but I did re-record it and a version that had you instead of he. So there were things that I was like, okay, I'll do that. Like if you're willing to give me, a deal or put money behind me, or, which ultimately he really didn't.
How did that feel when you did that?
Re-recording the U version. I really didn't like the song as much. I thought it would lost something. The song was called Write Me a Love Song, and I just felt like the fact that, it was called Write Me a Love Song, it had the male pronouns. I mean, I didn't write it totally intentionally like that, but that's how it came out, and I'm like, this is like deep, because it's about how we don't have a love song for us. So I didn't like the song as much, although I did like some of, because I re-recorded the vocals and I thought some of my vocal performance was better. So I was like, life is full of contradictions, cognitive dissonance, but I'm like, well, my vocal is a little better because I got to re-record some of it.
So you didn't feel like you had sold out yourself?
No, and the song, that version, the U version, was actually, it was on my website for a while, but what I ended up releasing into the world on my own label, was the him version.
Okay.
And that's what got the attention of Billboard magazine.
Yeah.
So ultimately, that was the version that came out. So I didn't have to feel bad about it. Yeah.
Yeah, because it does, from the outside, it looks like fearless gay Ari. Who has no fear. Yeah, I guess it's fearless. No fear of being openly gay and doing whatever to support that.
That's amazing. Just you saying that, it gives me chills and it makes me emotional.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because sorry, because I did have so much fear.
Yeah.
And much of the fear was not about being an openly gay artist. That I felt very passionately about. That was my passion. But I still had so much internalized homophobia.
Okay.
I still had such a desire to portray something that was strong. I always think about, I think Oprah says, we teach best the lesson we most need to learn for ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
So my internalized homophobia, my shame, my, for being an effeminate little gay boy, which I was very, very deep. And so I think that, my desire to portray some kind of symbol of masculinity and strength was a response to that. And, and it wasn't completely false. I had somehow managed to assemble some kind of butchness, And I also had the, I guess, intellectual understanding that masculinity should not be owned by heterosexual men, and that there is actually something even very specific, like the specificity of a butch gay masculinity that I was interested in. Tom of Finland and and porn, which So
those were on your mood board?
Definitely. Definitely. Not literally, but figuratively. And I was exploring that. I was exploring that in my own personal life, like this newfound, I got a lot of attention for, my newfound muscles and, and that portrayal of masculinity. And so I sort of ran with that. It's interesting. Again, things have changed so much and we have a new understanding. But I always did try to complicate it. I talked about my conflicts about gender, and I also always included trans folk and, my trans sisters in my work. Who, I had personal relationships with, and stuff. So, but, I don't know. It's deep.
But, it's interesting because we look at people from the outside and we don't know exactly what they're going through, and we throw all these things onto them.
Project.
Yes, that may partially be true. Because it's like you see someone living what we assume is their dream, that it must be fearless to live your dream because you may not be living that dream. So now you have this thing where people are like, oh, well, you're doing it, so you must be fearless. Because I'm scared to do it, right?
Yeah, well, and then it's like I look back on, sort of like the height of what I was doing, performing at all the gay prides and being on the cover of like, all these gay rags and magazines and whatever. But there was still so much struggle at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I was never making, Beyonce, Madonna, Gaga money.
Yeah.
Not even close.
Yeah.
I mean, everything that I did or I made, whether from touring or whatever, like it was always put back out into the work. And like, if I had the opportunity to take my full band with me, or if I had the opportunity to take dancers with me, I always did.
Yeah.
Even if that meant that I wasn't going to get much money at the end of the gig. So I was always struggling and like wanting to get to that place, that level, or find that kind of institutional support or major record label support where I could breathe and feel safe in what I was doing. And I never had that. And then all of a sudden, you're 45 years old.
Yeah.
And you're not like, the buzzed about 20-something year old. And now, it's like Troye Sivan is the first gay artist to have, homoeroticism in their videos.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. It's interesting how people forget. And sometimes, it's like, it's a weird to call yourself a pioneer or whatever, but those people who did blaze the trail, are oftentimes forgotten.
Yeah,
and I would like to think that I love Troye Sivan, so don't get me wrong.
Yeah. And
I love what he's doing, and it reminds me so much of myself when I was that age too. There's a certain fearlessness. But I'd like to think that I helped break down some of those barriers and all the people that said, "Oh, it couldn't work. It's not going to work. It's not." I heard that so many times. I can't even tell you.
Yeah.
People would really back then say, "You can't be openly gay." So many times.
Yeah. And it was meant to be helpful to you. Is that what they were saying it as? Or
sometimes, and sometimes I think that people are haters and dream or soul killers was how I termed it back at a certain time. I wrote a song about it.
Was that Transfer System?
Yes.
So what kept you motivated through all that time?
The same thing that keeps me motivated now, going through all the hardships that I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
And I couldn't quite tell you what that is.
Yeah.
And that's just a fire in me that I am grateful and blessed to have. I've gone through bouts of depression and things of that sort, where on a certain given day I might not have had access to the fire, but it was still there.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't give up. I haven't given up. In the midst of dealing with a very serious cancer, I released an album, and actually it was a year-long project of releasing a remix single every single month leading up to the album that came out for the 50th anniversary of Stonewall. And I came up with that idea after a week of silent meditation.
Okay.
That I went on
retreat.
Okay. That I went on to figure out what the... Can I curse on this?
Absolutely.
What the fuck I'm going to do, because my doctors wanted to give me a bone marrow transplant. They wanted to put me through chemo, and that was something that I had a lot of fear around. I had already had a lot of medical malpractice or mishap or medical trauma, really, PTSD. It really was. And so I didn't have the answers after the week of silent meditation, but I came up with that idea for an album. Okay. But eventually that break did shift me, and I became ready to go through what I'm going through at this very moment right now.
Okay. So backing up, what was the impetus for the the retreat?
I was in a dark place.
Okay.
I didn't know I was, I mean, I'd been diagnosed like 6 or 7 years ago, so I've been living with this for a long time.
And this is MDS?
Well, it was originally diagnosed as MDS, and it actually became AML, which is acute myeloid leukemia.
Okay.
Which is, you know, they're both serious, and they both are cured with the bone marrow transplant, but the leukemia is more difficult to treat and I guess more dire.
Yeah.
And you know, I was able to make Soundtrack to Freedom in the midst of all that. And a lot of the songs off that album were a reflection of the psychic pain and whatever it was that I was going through on a personal level. But of course, also it had a more political and macro meaning about dance music as the soundtrack to LGBTQ freedom.
Okay.
And no matter what we're going through, you know, we still want to dance and music and celebrate life. And that's that has been the soundtrack to our struggle and our equality, much in the same way as soul music has been to civil rights or folk music has been to the feminist movement. So yeah, now, I mean, as I like to say, now as I get ready to do this bone marrow transplant, where I'm literally remixing the cells in my body. So this remix album is once again, represents this idea, which is the idea that we can always remix ourselves and remix who we are. And I think we're at a point in history where, I mean, our country, the world, we're in desperate need of some remixing. But the LGBTQ community also has done a lot of remixing of who we are, even just remixing the letters of what we call ourselves, adding ones, taking some away. I don't know. I can't keep up.
So when did you, last year you wrote an essay about your process.
Yes, for New Now Next.
Yeah, for New Now Next. And I guess it was like what? Cancer, having cancer.
And shame.
And gay shame.
Yeah. I actually didn't write they gave me the title, which I wished I would have found my own title. But yeah, I wrote an essay. It's so funny that you're mentioning that because I literally just meditated before this interview. Yeah. And that essay just came up in my meditation.
Okay.
I have a lot of it's such a vulnerable essay, and I've actually learned a lot even since writing that essay. I've already done work and feel like I'm experiencing an even deeper level of gratitude for things and for life, and I don't know, but I did write about that, and I mean, shame has been the gay shame thing is so huge. And there is something about the identity of having cancer and feeling like, somehow it's your fault or it becomes who you are as opposed to something that just is happening to you
Well, explain the letter.
You mean the essay?
The essay. Yeah, explain the essay. Oh, God. And why do you for people who haven't read it?
Well, read it.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if I could. I would have to look back. I don't even know if I could explain it. But I know some of it was me licensing myself to use my cancer card.
Okay. Yes.
And I feel funny about that part of the essay, and I don't know if it rubbed. I know it did rub some people the wrong way.
It comes at the end, though.
Yeah, it comes at the end.
It comes at the end.
But it's like for people going through something as difficult and challenging as cancer, for people going through something as difficult as, coming out of the closet from a religious family, which so many of us do, for people who are, of trans experience, for trans women of color, it's not easy to be. And so I wanted to give license to use that damn card when you can. It's it's not so, because people will shame you for that too. Oh, you're using the race card, or you're using the gay card. So my hope was that it was inspiring and not like, and not. I definitely didn't want it to be sort of like. It should be empowering as opposed to staying in any kind of victim place.
Yeah.
That was my intention.
Yeah. Well, that part was only like about 10%.
Okay.
Of the whole article, if you don't remember correctly. It was more about...
Thank you for telling me about my essay.
The perception I got, it was more about how you got cancer, right? And then it triggered the gay shame or brought it back up to the surface for you, and like kind of unexpectedly.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then there's just this whole... The way in which people of... I don't know exactly how old you are, but people of our generation, and the way in which our gayness, our sexuality, our queerness was so coinciding with illness and with AIDS and HIV. So there was a lot of that. Like when I was in the hospital in 2015, which actually was even worse than the last round of hospitalization that I had to go through because so many things were happening and people didn't know what was going on. And I'm not saying that it was just like having AIDS or being, or the time or what happened at that time. I can't really imagine what that was like. It just seems so devastating to not know what's happening and everybody getting sick and dying. But there was an element that reminded me, and there were folks who came to visit me in the hospital, friends of mine who were older than me, who did go through that and saw me struggling, and I just couldn't help but think about AIDS, and I think about AIDS a lot anyway. So, and how much of that the shame, gay people and the LGBTQ community were shamed when they started. Getting sick and made to feel like it was their fault. Yeah. So that's not new. So there was something about the being sick and having cancer that felt like that again, and it reminded me, because when I came out, that was definitely, even though it was, people were on medications at the time. So it wasn't it was right after the time when people were really dying. As far as my family was concerned, being gay still meant getting AIDS. Yeah. And that was for sure their very first concern. And that was the culture at the time. Yeah. Oh, you're gay. Are you going to get AIDS?
Okay. So that's going through your mind at the time that this is all happening? With your the connection between AIDS and cancer and gay shame. Sure. Okay.
It was more of like a visceral thing, but I mean, and just, the shame, you can never change your childhood. It is,
unfortunately.
Right. You can only change your understanding of it, the way that you deal with it now, your level of awareness of how the things that you do in your present day are reactions to your childhood and whatever trauma you experienced. And most of us do experience some kind of childhood trauma. So that's what it was. I spent so many years deeply, deeply in the closet and feeling like if anyone found out who I really was, I would be excommunicated from my family, my community. And that experience is very formative. And so it's always about peeling away those layers of shame but you can't just peel away. You also have to, I have found that you have to be active in the self-care. And the loving of yourself. You have to parent yourself the way that maybe you were not parented. Okay. And, that child is always with me. It's not like that was some other human. That human is still exists within me. And so how do I treat that human today? And that's what helps the shame, but it's a constant process. And so I've had to constantly learn it. And so in some ways, in many ways, this cancer thing as crazy it is to say. And that actually was my first line of writing that essay, was about how cancer was the best thing that ever happened to me. And that's actually what I wanted to call the piece originally.
Yes.
Because it continued to teach me how to unpeel the shame and how to give myself what I did not receive as a child.
Okay. And how long do you get to that where you can see the lessons of it as opposed to why is this happening to me, or if you even went through that?
Well, I definitely did go through that. And first of all, it's a daily reprieve, and it's a day at a time. Okay. So some days I'm still in more of a woe is me moment. Yeah. But not today, which is good. And it's always a gift for me to be able to talk about my work and to talk about these things, because these things are what feed me, just these issues and this is what I'm always been passionate about, and what I try to portray in the music and in the songwriting and in the writing of my autobiographical musical, which has still not really fully seen the light of day, many years in the making.
But you put it out there.
I've worked on it in many different incarnations, New York Theater Workshop.
You speak it out there in
your book? Continue to speak it out there. That's what I'm trying to do, exactly. And just recently wrote a whole new draft that has a whole nother layer to it that was not in it before. Okay. Because life continues to change, my life continues to change, and it continues to reveal itself, and the lessons continue to reveal itself. And so I guess to answer your question, it never ends, but I think I hope, it's like you have more good days than bad days, and that the levels, I hope that the levels of gratitude continue to get deeper, and the states of woe is me, or the state of depression, or the state of victimhood gets more and more manageable. I don't think it goes away, but gets more and more manageable. Okay. I hope that I don't ever experience the depth of depression that I've gone through in my past. I hope that I'm done with that. Yeah. But you don't know. Life is crazy. That's why you have to live it a day at a time, or I do at least, and have to sometimes a moment at a time, and of course, the spiritual cliche that is true, which is really about being in this moment here, is the only one that we have, and that's all we have.
Okay. So you seem like a spiritual guy from what I intuit. What did you do? Daily practice, spiritual practices?
Yes.
Self-care, what does that look like for you?
Yes. So as I just said right before this, I did my second meditation of the day. Yeah. I did... I took a transcendental meditation course. So
how was that?
It was great. Yeah. It was great. I did that right after the week of silent meditation. So that, I just delved into some crazy, experience, because that was very challenging. Okay. I mean, to be silent for a week and meditate all day, every day for 7 days. It's that was a lot. But I knew I needed, I was desperate, and I needed something to just radically shift me, and it did. But then after that, I was like, okay, so this worked. This did something to me. So and I've always been fascinated with meditation, and I have meditated. Thank you, Oprah and Deepak. They actually helped me get my feet wet. At times, I would do those 21-day meditation challenges. And I still listen to them. They had a new one recently. But just the sound of Oprah's voice. Yes. I mean, it's like Oprah is my Jesus.
Yeah, same here.
But I spent years reading about meditation and not really doing meditation, or just doing it for 21 days and then not doing it for months after. So then I took that TM course. I got like I took that and that was great because it taught me about how simple it has to, it can be. People think of it as very booga booga and just like, that you have, even it's kind of counterintuitive because even the term transcendental meditation sounds really like, ooh.
Yeah. You're going deep.
But what I learned, the biggest lesson I learned from them is how simple it is, how little expectations you should have about the actual moment of sitting, and that it's really about the benefits that happen after that. How often you get to come back to your breath or your mantra or whatever you're doing doesn't really matter. How many crazy thoughts you're having in your head. People, of course, one of the biggest misconceptions about meditation is that you're supposed to stop thinking.
Yes.
So no, you're not supposed to stop thinking, but you can maybe get some distance between you and your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. You are not your thoughts, and feelings aren't facts.
Yes.
Those are big lessons.
So for TM, what is it like? You work with like a mentor type person, and they give you like
at the time you take a course. I took a course with other people.
Okay,
I wasn't private, and I was actually supposed to go back to just sort of make sure that I'm doing it correctly, and I haven't done that return back thing. But also, I've given, even though they have certain strict guidelines about what's the best way to do it, the big takeaway for me was like, just keep it simple for yourself.
Okay.
And so even though there might be even some things about the way that I do it now that isn't necessarily how they told me to do it, I've incorporated other prayers, and like I pray to after the meditation, and I've incorporated other things that I've learned in other other forums of spirituality and self-care.
Yeah. So that's sort of what I do. I practice Nichiren Buddhism. So that's Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Tina Turner.
Yes,
is
that
the
phrase
proponent
that
of it.
was taught to me. I think my mother taught that to me when I was a kid.
Okay.
And I used to say it sometimes. So yeah.
So I do that and breathing meditation also, and then I made my first altar this year, so I have like crystals and a singing bowl and all that.
Whatever, whatever.
Twice a day.
Twice a day.
Yeah, twice a day.
Me too. And just to be easy on myself, because lately there were I was really good for months, but then sometimes the twice a day wasn't as good. And just to be easy on myself about it. When you like skip a day, you feel like, oh, that's it, I'm done. Like I'm ruined. And it's like, you know what? You always have like another day to just get the practice back up again.
And it's like the worst thing in the world to be harsh on yourself about. Like your spiritual meditation, to be so harsh on yourself about it.
Well, give me an opportunity to beat myself up, and I'll take it. But that's hopefully not. I won't take it as readily as I used to.
Yeah, because I meditate. I'm like, wow, you sure were chatty during that meditation, where my thoughts are just like a million thoughts,
right?
And I shouldn't judge that,
right? Yeah. Not to judge. I mean, let alone judging the content of the thoughts, but then you're even just to judge the amount of thoughts. But it is good to be aware of it, right? So like instead of going straight to judgment, like there's that place before that, like, oh, my brain really was real active. Yeah. Like I must be maybe I'm a little anxious about something, and then you can then you get to be curious and get to like do some inquiry into. Well, what's going on with me? Yeah. Is there something else that I'm thinking about, or that I'm worried about, or
Have you always been like this? Like spiritually inclined?
I think that you asked me earlier. Where I forget how you phrased the question, but where
the motivation,
and I feel like it comes from that same place. Okay, so whatever the motivation to be an artist and to express myself artistically, is that same. It's that same, for lack of a better word, light or soul or spirit. It's that same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've always been a searcher, I think. And, I grew up pretty religious. Most of that I didn't find all that fulfilling from a spiritual level, but I think the idea of God, and they certainly were instilled in me at an early age. Some people totally rebel against that and can't stand those terms even.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the terms. I just think that I've redefined them so that I don't think about God in the ways that I may have thought as a child. Some sort of personification of a human form that's punishing and
And as an adult, you get to have your own God, like how you want to see him.
And that's one of the things that I always like to tell people is because I have some atheist friends and I find them to be the most. I have one friend in particular. She's an atheist, and she is like the most spiritual in certain ways. Like what really is spiritual? Because what really is spiritual is to be in touch with the level of service to others that one can have, and maybe. I don't want to say should, because we don't want to should all over ourselves. That can be dangerous.
Louise Hay says.
Oh, yeah? Is that hers?
Yeah.
Okay, I stole it.
Stop shooting over here.
Okay, I know Louise Hay. I didn't know that she used to should all over herself. I've lost my train of thought.
Okay. Shooting over yourself. God, I just lost it too.
God, it was about God.
Yeah, God. Creating your own version of God. Your atheist friend.
Well. So so she's an atheist, but she is so other-centered, service-oriented. Her work in life and what she's dedicated herself to social justice. And, her name is Shari, and But at the same time, like it's like sometimes I might get frustrated with certain friends of mine who are atheists or who say they don't believe in God.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I feel like in a way that can sometimes lets people who think they own God win in a way. It's like no, they don't. You don't. It's like what we were talking about before about masculinity too. It's like no, you're like heterosexual people. You don't get to define and own masculinity and keep it only in a toxic place.
Yeah.
You don't get to own God and make God some kind of punishing, divisive figure. So I guess that's always been a thing. That's been my MO. People deal with things differently. I've always been a fan, I guess, of like redefining and what's the word? Resignifying, and it's that's why I don't. I'm not necessarily a fan of like censoring language and not using certain words. I won't use if a word is hurtful to a community that is more marginalized than me. I will not use it. Although actually, on my last album, I did use a couple of words because I was in the midst of having a conversation about those particular words in my own in my own life. But for the most part, I will respect their wishes to if it makes them feel. I know what that feels like. But for myself, like I will use the word faggot and like say it proudly because it's been used against me, and I don't want that I don't want that meaning to hold the most meaning. I want to be able to redefine a word and maybe take it and own it and celebrate what could be good about it. That's just me.
Yeah. Why do you think you didn't turn your back on God, so to speak? A lot of times when people have a horrible religious experience and with orthodoxy, but that didn't happen for you.
I mean, I know that in the midst of this cancer journey, there was one period of time I was actually on 6 months of a daily high dosage of steroids. And I had never been more depressed in my life.
Yeah.
I experienced the kind of depression. I had other kinds of depression that I could like leave the house but still feel depressed. And this was like one of those I can't leave the house depressions. And so in that moment, I mean, did I believe in God in that moment? I don't know. You know, like if I don't feel like there is a greater, it's when I don't feel like there's a greater purpose and when there's a greater meaning, when things are, I use the word bashert, which is a Yiddish word, you know, I wrote a song about it, you know, like when I feel that, it makes me feel better. When I feel like I'm supposed to be where I am, when I can be in touch with that is when I feel better. When I'm not in touch with it is when I'm depressed. So, I mean, in those moments, maybe I didn't have the belief, you know, I might have lost my belief, but through the grace of, I guess that's what grace is. I learned that too, like what grace was, because that's those little like glimmer, little glimmer of moments, little openings of the window where like the light shines through. I mean, so thankfully at some point I didn't spend too much time in that. I mean, the time that I did spend, I made everybody miserable around me. I'll tell you that right now. You know, but somehow found my way. And, you know, I guess, you know, they call it in like recovery, they call it like smart feet, you know, like, so that even when I was at my lowest, I would maybe like be like, well, I need to go to therapy, or I need to talk to someone, or I need to call someone. Like there was always something, you know, just do something, even if you did go to talk to someone, just so you can tell them how life is shit.
Instead of like alienating yourself,
and isolating. Yeah. You know, the one thing that I have had, and it's that internal thing that I can't fully explain, but is knowing how to ask for help. I think that is when it's really dangerous, is when people feel like they cannot ask for help. And, you know, I would encourage anyone who might be feeling helpless and hopeless that you'll 9 times out of 10, you know, if you keep going, you know, maybe you'll reach out and that first person won't give you help. And you'll then have confirmation that your life is as shitty as you think it is. But if you try again, maybe the second time, the third time, there are people out there who are, you know, who are helper people and who feel that connection and will help you and help get you out of whatever that is, the despair. Because I've been there.
Is maintaining the art, is that a way to keep you afloat too? Has
Definitely. So like that's why we were talking before we started recording about, you know, even just stuff that I was doing in the hospital, just figuring out ways that I can continue to express myself artistically, or always having the fact that I've always had some project, something. That has gotten me through for sure. Yes, it's the connection to others, reaching out to others for help, and then for me personally, you know, I'm extremely grateful for wherever that comes from. But the fact that I always, you know, it's like, well, I can't kill myself now because I still got an album to put out. You know, maybe after the album.
There's still time.
But I've already have half the songs finished. So I gotta finish these at least. You know, that helps.
And something
really,
to look forward to.
Look forward to. It's huge.
That's great, dude. So this is a horrible segue, but okay. There's 2 things. Want to talk about finally the remix album, but also, what are your recommended books? I'm curious.
Oh my God,
like spiritual books, things motivate you.
Well, I'm a fan of a current a currently divisive or divisive, whatever, however you say it, figure, because I even have some really good friends, friends who I respect a great deal politically, who are furious at Marianne Williamson for putting herself, the nerve that she has to put herself in this race. But I love her.
Yeah, me too.
She's helped me, and I don't think it's a bad thing to just even entertain the thought that a president doesn't have to be someone with office experience. But I have a friend who that makes her furious. But I think that you never. I mean, some of the most incredible ideas, probably the idea of America, comes from a very left field, radical things that are not part of whatever the system is. And so I think the fact that she represents something outside of whatever the system is, that doesn't mean she's necessarily my first choice to be president. But I love that she's there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I love her books. And I have 2 Oprah books that people got me when I was in the hospital, that I have, and then I have RuPaul's Guru book over there. We're in my home, so it's so easy. Like when people ask you these questions and you draw blanks, but here in my home, I've got all of my things.
I'm looking at them.
I've got all my I still have my CDs, like a crazy person who grew up in the 80s and 90s. But Ru introduced me to Marianne Williamson, and Ru's book is called Guru, but he has been a personal guru to me. He's been a personal guru to me. And then as you, I don't know if you fully took it in, but the entranceway is full of
Wonder Woman stuff.
Just a little, just a few things. She gives me inspiration always. Just it's like my endorphins just start going when I just see the costume in any incarnation.
When did that start?
Very young.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have to explain that to your parents?
No.
Okay.
The funny thing is, looking back, my parents really, even though I heard bad things about being gay, and I was at different moments shamed for playing with dolls or whatever, at the end of the day, they really did let me run around the house in my quote unquote Wonder Boy costume. It was like I had boy shorts that were these shiny blue that I put stars on it. Yeah. So, and then I was in show business at an early age, and so even I've told the story about being shamed when I wanted the Annie mansion, the dollhouse. I already had the doll. But with show business, it's like, well, he likes Annie. It's a musical. I mean, my father, even though he was the one who said, "What does a boy have to do with an Annie dollhouse?" He was not a traditional father in any way, shape, or form. My father is a big musical theater queen, married to my mother to this day, 55 plus years later. So I mean. He's not. He wasn't one to talk, but of course I was made fun of in school, and I had 2 straight older brothers, one of whom was fairly sporty, but the other was more of like a music nerd, and So I look back. I actually literally look back because I have a ton. It's unbelievable. I have a ton of footage of my childhood because that was what we did. We played with a video camera, which of course now everybody does. But back then in the Bronx, not that many people had video cameras, and so I have all this footage of me just like queening out. I mean, I was such a little queen. I wished I had the freedom. Like I had when I was a child to be that queen again,
And dressed as Wonder Woman or Wonder Boy?
As I would call it, Wonder Boy.
Wonder Boy, okay.
Yeah, or singing, Hopelessly Devoted to You with like, a turtleneck around my head like it was hair. But you know, and actually, not only did they give me the freedom, but I mean, what's sad is I learned a story. Only a few years ago did I learn this story, and that was a moment when I was like, I think I was 3 or 4 years old, so young, and my mother was shamed for the fact that I was, I guess, already then an effeminate little boy who liked to play with girl things, because there was another boy that I had a friend. I don't remember any of this. I was so young, but apparently there was a boy in my building in the Bronx that I played with, and the mother was at some point said that she did not want her son to be playing with me anymore. And I think that my parents' tendency was to really let their kids be who they are, or they definitely had at least some of that desire, which is really such an important parental skill. It's to let your kids be who you are. But then the challenge is that then you have this society and the people around you or your community telling you no, you know, do not let your children be who they are. It's wrong. It's sinful. It's not right. And so, you know, my mother basically was shamed at that moment. And I think the way she told me that story was like, that was the first moment for her. She thought I was just being cute. Yeah. And that's so sad, you know?
Yeah, I had never thought about that. I mean, because the kids can be shamed, but then the parents can be also. Yeah. Because the kid's not conforming.
And I mean, that's such a huge part is parents are human beings who maybe haven't done their own work on themselves, and so they will allow, you know, what other people think to influence how they're raising their child. They're just human beings. That's why we have to forgive them.
Yes. So this is the worst segue I've ever done.
Okay, let's do it.
The remix album. What makes a good remix?
What makes a good remix? Well, what comes to mind immediately, and this was such a incredible moment in remix history, was the moment that Mariah Carey remixed Dream Lover.
Yes, that was huge. Yes,
because she actually changed the song from a major to a minor key, and I had never heard that done before. I don't think it really had ever been done before. You know, back in like the 80s, like a remix would just be more of like an extended version. They would highlight certain instruments that were already in there. And then all of a sudden, remixes basically became totally new incarnations and reproductions, and it would be a totally new vision. So, but, you know, I think that you can take elements of the original, but I guess what makes a good remix is when you really have created something new with it. And it really feels like it has an element of that old thing that it started with as the base, but that somehow it's become something new now.
Did you tell the remixers for your album, like, just do you, or I want a particular style, or like, what was the procedure?
I pretty much let, because remixes tend to have their own style, and so I you know, unless... I mean, like that's where when I make my own albums and I'm collaborating with arrangers or producers, that's where I get to be very specific about the sound that I want and the arrangement. But yeah, I usually just let them do their thing, and then it's about. I mean, I was so blessed on this album to get so many different remixes and I, you know, then I get to choose like the ones that I like best. So that's cool. But, I mean, Jared Jones, who I worked with a great deal on this album, and he is my distributor too at J-Red Music. And he did just some fantastic remixes that I just absolutely loved. I mean, there's certain vibes of house music that I have an affinity for. A little slower groove and a little. It feels soulful to me. But yeah, I really loved the work that he did and the work that a lot of the remixers did.
Great.
And I was lucky enough to have a moment out of the hospital and to actually like sequence the album the way I wanted it to be and really make sure that like it plays as you can put it on and it's a party, you know? Nonstop.
Because the mood changes as you go through the album.
Yes, and towards the end there's some of the more like R&B flavors that we got also.
Good sequencing job.
Well, thank you.
And how are you feeling now?
Today's a good day. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Yes, I enjoyed this very much. All right.
And I'm getting ready for another round of insanity. But I hope that I will come out of that remixed.
Yes. I wish you the best on all that.
Thank you so much.
And everything. Did I leave anything out?
Oh, God, we covered a lot.
Yeah. Thank you, Ari.
Thank you.
Music in our blood at night. Vampires unafraid of the light. Disco sucks, CDM's got a bite. We'll deep throat the rhythm till it's out of sight. We are the rainbow children tonight. We will dance for our freedom with all of our might. We'll remember who's lost, never forget the plight. We'll deep throat the rhythm till it's out of sight. Soundtrack to freedom. Looking at the movement we won't back down from. With the soundtrack to my best friend's house, he's staying at mine. But we're both at the club, smooth jamming all night. That was the grade, fresh kicks with the tight fade. And who's gonna be the first to get laid? Oh, ain't got to work every day, ain't got no bills to get paid. And every summer was a 3-month break. Taking it back, used to think we were so cool. Taking it back to high school. Taking it back, living life by our own rules. Taking it back to high school. Rolling it back to a simpler time. Into the group, then you hit rewind. 'Cause it feels like we're back in high school. Making a mix with my favorite songs. Turn it up and sing along. 'Cause it feels like we're back in high school. All the other kids in the two cool cliques are rolling their eyes. And the freaks and the geeks see the jocks creep up and run for their lives. Smoking trees, fake IDs. Never stop believing we are young and free. Oh, you wonder that was the grade. Fresh kicks with the tight fade. And who's gonna be the first to get laid? Ooh, yeah, yeah. Ain't got to work every day. Ain't got no bills to get paid. Every summer was a 3-month break. Taking it back, used to think we were so cool. Taking it back to high school. Taking it back, living life by our own rules. Taking it back to high school. Rolling it back to a simpler time. Into the group, then you hit rewind. 'Cause it feels like we're back in high school. Making a mix with my favorite songs. Turn it up and sing a song. 'Cause it feels like we're back in high school. And remember when the songs were so simple, like ooh la la la, ooh la la la. Everybody just singing along like ooh la la la, ooh la la la. Remember when the songs were simple, like ooh la la la. Everybody just singing along like ooh la la la, ooh la la la. Used to think we were so strong. Taking it back to high school. Taking it back, living life by our own rules. Taking it back to high school. Rolling it back to a simpler time. Into the group, then you hit rewind. 'Cause it feels like we're back in high school. Making the mix with my favorite songs. Turn it up and sing along. 'Cause it feels like we're back in high school.
And that was Sir Ari Gold and Gold Nation with Back in High School and Soundtrack to Freedom, both from Remix to Freedom, the album. Make sure you check out Ari online at arigold.com for links to his social media and his YouTube channel so you can see his music videos and live performances. As I'm recording this, Ari had been scheduled to go for his transplant, but because of some recent complications, it has been pushed back for 2 weeks. But I have 2 requests for you. First one, if you can support his GoFundMe page. It is called Help Ari Kick Cancer. You can Google that and find the direct link, but I will also put the link in the show notes for you. And also, just send him some positive vibrations and prayers. I totally believe that if anybody can kick this, Ari can. As he said, he has a fire inside of him, and I don't doubt it. So just do those 2 favors for me. It would be greatly appreciated. Before I end the show, I just want to tell you that you can find out more podcast information about Talk Music Talk at talkmusictalk.com. And please follow me on Instagram at This Is Boyce. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and many other places. Just search for Talk Music Talk. Please leave a 5-star rating and or review because it helps to expose TMT to new listeners. Plus, you can download the Talk Music Talk app. It is free wherever you like to get apps. Again, just search for Talk Music Talk. And don't forget, I'm also the host of the Strandcast, the official podcast for Strand Bookstore in New York City. Links in the show notes, of course. Thank you so much for listening. Again, positive vibrations and love to Ari Gold, to Sir Ari Gold. Until next time, and there will be a next time, this one's for you, Liz.